Yeah, we are. Hi, welcome to Politics for People Who Hate Politics. Season 2, I think, is the notion. I have a good panel who has suffered a great deal in the past 13 to 20 minutes, what with technical difficulties and our reckless pushing play natures. I've got Joe, because Joe is essential to this podcast. Joe, he's my brother, and not that he's not his own person, but that's why he's here. Sorry, Joe, nepotism works in your favor again, or dooms you. It's hard to say which. Franklin Harris, tell me your proper job title again, my good sir.
I'm assistant metro editor for the Decatur Daily in Decatur, Alabama.
I almost knew that. I would have gotten like half of that. We have Todd Seavey, who is a Splice Today columnist and a ghostwriter of mysterious ghost things, and an author of all sorts of things, and that's good.
Of the upcoming Libertarianism for Beginners.
Yeah, that. Thank you. You know how to plug yourself. Good man. And we have Jeff Tucker, who's the king of Liberty.me, and also the director of digital development. I absolutely looked at that at FEE, which is a good organization. So that's cool. Thanks for coming, kids. Thanks for tolerating the technical madness that's happened so far.
It was entirely my fault. See, I mean, I caused this chaos. I'm sorry about that.
Only like 40% of it, so I wouldn't worry too much.
Okay.
All right, let's start complaining, because that's what we do here. Also, yeah, all right. I feel like Todd and Jeff were both like already searching for good points when we were backstage, as it were. So we can pursue that in terms of the debates and what the hell it means to win a debate anyway.
Well, I watched the debates, you know, and live tweeted them. Mostly, I began my live tweeting with an observation that I thought it was strange that Mike Huckabee's eyeshadow matched his necktie, which I couldn't quite deal with that. But you know, I was startled because you know, this Cruz guy, you know, sort of bloviating all night and whipping up the masses, you know, in some sort of frenzied populist hatred of the media and that sort of thing. And then today, all over the, you know, HuffPo and Drudge and, you know, everybody, all the conventional wisdom out there is proclaiming, you know, Cruz to have come back now, and he's now the ruler of the roost, and he's, you know, this is his great moment in the sun. Jeb Bush did terribly, everybody says. So I don't understand this, because that certainly was not my impression at all. I thought Jeb Bush was the most impressive thing about Jeb Bush, I thought, last night, was that he celebrated what's his fantasy football, and he did it in a compelling way. Actually, you know, talking about his scores and his team, and it was clear to me that he really does play this. I mean, he seemed to have a greater mastery of fantasy football than he did you know, so-called public policy, which made me very optimistic that if he does get elected, that he'll sit around that and play that all the time in the White House, which to me is exactly the kind of president.
You're not wrong about that, but that optimism is way too much for this show, and you'll have to leave. No, that's not true. So.
On a more pessimistic note, I remember.
Thank you, Todd.
Back in early 2001, I was very encouraged by the fact that George W. Bush seemed to be spending a lot of time thinking about organizing T-ball games for kids on the White House lawn. I thought, this is going to be great. He's going to do nothing.
That would have been really nice. It did at that. I don't know, when it comes to, like, I feel like it gets really conspiratorial, or like it sounds like it when, like, but it almost feels like the media as a, you know, it's a big glob, as it were, and I'm generalizing horribly, but then they do pick a winner, and with the Democrat one, it was Clinton, and sometimes I feel like it is the most strident person in any debate, as if it is practically like, you know, a battle of wills and muscle, instead of like Bernie Sanders is, you know, scary in certain ways, but he seemed more like a human with beliefs, and Hillary Clinton, because I loathe her, but also she comes off as a true politician in the worst sense of the word. And to the media, that meant Hillary Clinton won. So did Cruz win because he, you know, he was punching people and stuff, and Jeb Bush seemed sort of okay for someone with such a horrible last name?
Yep. Speaking as an occasional TV producer, I'd say that whether it's conscious or unconscious, the media are always rooting for the person who they think will get them the biggest ratings if they continue to bet on the person. So a lot of them are probably hoping Trump will be the nominee. for the Republicans, and they may be a little bit torn about the Democrats because they figure Hillary will bring in a lot of female viewers, but Bernie Sanders yells a lot, which is really good for TV. So that, I suspect,
that is really insightful, and I'm glad you said that. I mean, I'm only recently coming to a full consciousness of just how important ratings are to television. You're indeed right. This is why they love Trump. Actually, I mean, he's awesome for ratings. And George Bush probably, Jeb Bush probably isn't. So yeah, I can imagine that.
Yet at the same time,
and by the way, it was Trump that sort of revealed this to everybody by pointing out that CNBC wanted to run the debate 3 hours so they could run as many commercials as possible. And he refused to go. Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah.
That was awkward on several levels. Franklin, what were you saying?
Well, yet at the same time, if Trump is the best candidate for ratings, which to this point he has proven to be, no one's ever said he's come out of any of these debates as the winner. That's never happened. And I guess I'm a mainstream media guy here, and I guess I have this sort of mainstream media view as well. That not Cruz.
Rubio?
Crap. Rubio won the debate basically. But the question is, do the debates even matter? We've gone through 3 now. And no one has ever said Trump won a debate or Carson won a debate, and yet there they are, up at the top.
Right.
Trump and Carson, who along with Fiorina now account for about 49% of the GOP primary vote. Right. That's just unreal, really. So, I mean, what we were seeing last night was Rubio and Jeb fighting over who gets to be in third place.
Rubio seemed,
Franklin, I would be very curious about your view about this, and everybody really, just because I'm mystified by it. What is the infatuation? I mean, is it authentic with this Carson guy? I just can't make heads or tails of it.
Oh, I think a lot of that. Well, I mean, we probably all agree that a lot of the popularity of candidates is just name recognition, and apparently Carson has an immense religious book reading following. That, of course, I, being a secular, mainstream politics watching guy, knew nothing about. But although he's a Seventh-day Adventist, he writes a lot of sort of non-denominational, religious faith-themed books that are extremely popular. So a lot of the Republican voters recognize his name. I think that's about all it comes down to.
And that works.
Did not know that at all.
In Iowa, where you have the caucus system and where the evangelical vote can really sway that election there, because that's where in the past candidates like Santorum or Pat Robertson have done historically well.
Yeah, that is really interesting. I didn't identify his base of support as being evangelicals. That's
me either.
It's also possible that will go away when they figure out that Seventh-day Adventism is weird.
Yeah, you're going to send the ATF after them? I mean, the Branch Davidian... This is all I know, of course, relates to depressing libertarian topics, is that the Branch Davidians were an offshoot of Seventh-day Adventists.
Oh.
Yeah, I must say, I've always sort of weirdly admired Seventh-day Adventists, as much as I know about them. As far as I understand it, their one central principle is that you should go to church on Saturday, not Sunday.
Yep.
And that's all most evangelicals know about them.
Yeah, well, and I was raised evangelical, so that's all I know about them.
I didn't know that.
But it's a correct position, actually, as regards if you're a biblical fundamentalist. You should be going to church on Saturday. I mean, it's only the Catholic Church basically that shifted things over to Sunday. So. The pagans and whatever. So it makes sense in a way. I still admire the position.
And their argument is essentially, if we break that rule, then God must think that we're not going to pay attention to any of the rules, so all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
It all comes down to Saturday.
That's a little. If you jaywalk, you'll probably be murdering people. For my taste, it's a little. You couldn't possibly judge which ones, For
yeah, but Lucy, you have to have some respect for this position, because most of these Christians claim that the Bible is the source of all truth, right?
Right.
So if you take the Bible seriously, you're not going to find anything in the Bible that says go to church on Sunday. The university says go to church on Saturday.
Yeah.
So
Well.
Hey,
so
I mean,
I just learned that the Catholic Bible is different, like that there are other books. So I'm a little behind on my religious education, I will say. Even though our dad was Catholic when he was a kid.
That's right. You need to bone up on your first and second Maccabees.
I do, very much so. I don't know what that is.
Getting
not really.
Carson real quick. He seems to me like one of those candidates that pops up every time Republicans do this, that people like until he actually starts discussing policy, and then people realize that he has no chance and that his views are pretty much just either made up on the spot or just so out there that he has no possible way of actually winning an actual, general election.
About this Carson?
Carson, yeah.
And we got a little sense of that just last night when he got from Carson when he got the gay marriage question, and it really, you could see the wheels turning in his head as he was trying to formulate his position right there on the stage.
I do love how there was, maybe I'm just inferring, I'm making this up, but like there was a sense of like, why is he bringing up this issue? Like, now there's some, pockets of people who still want to talk about that, but I at least got the sense that that was a little, 2012 and 2000.
I'm sorry, what issue is this?
When Carson was the only one bothering to say stuff about gay marriage, and I got a little bit of the sense that, like, even, the social cons, or a lot of them are tired of that, at least the ones that the big kids debate.
Yeah,
didn't realize...
This is a guy who said the other day that he wants to intensify the war on pot. I mean,
Christie, yeah. Didn't Christie? I thought Christie said that.
Carson said this. Probably Christie did too.
Yeah, they both have.
The laws. Yeah.
Aren't they swell? Christ. Well, I mean, that means they're their own men. They're not, they're not blowing with the winds of change like Hillary Clinton and like a bunch of other people style. They're, they bravely stand up for their principles. They just are atrocious. The way that, the Prohibition Party runs a candidate every 4 years and gets like 120 votes. Like, at some point you're just like, oh, that's cute of you that you're so horrifyingly wrong. It's like when our dad went to cover a KKK rally, like for the newspaper, and he says there were 5 people there, and you're just like, oh, that's sweet. There you are, being racists.
And one of them was the FBI informant.
Honestly, probably 3 of them were, if I understand correctly.
No, the Klan no longer wears uniforms and disguises themselves. They just go to Trump rallies.
Oh, that's right, Jeff. Your war with the Trumpers, the Trumpettes, whatever what they're called. Yeah, how's it going for you? Have you had more battles with the Trump people?
Well, Trump has mainstreamed himself now, so he's a little bit boring. I liked him a lot more when he was, telling what he really thinks, openly and aggressively. He was, just an open fascist. Now it's a little bit depressing how the political process civilizes people in a way. So at last night's debate, he came across as like a regular politician.
He said he likes the Mexicans. He's already backpedaling on that.
The cunning Mexicans, by the way. I'm not to be too picky, but the word describing a people as cunning just never comes off super well.
Did he describe Mexicans as cunning?
The word cunning was spoken. Yeah, I don't know.
Their leaders are cunning. They're more cunning.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're right. Thank you, Todd. Yeah, I mean, I can never decide if I want to. I mean, like, who was freaking me out more? Like Trump when he's full on about immigration stupidness, or just the status quo of almost anyone else? I mean,
Lucy, I think it was something to consider. Is we have to think about temperament. I mean, somebody earlier, I forget now who it was, said that it was Todd who said that he admired Bush early on, the old Bush, early on, because he thought he would be sort of a drunk in the White House and not do anything other than play with kids on the White House lawn or that sort of thing. And So I think this is the right way to think about people. It's like, what is the temperament they have? And I think about Trump. If he gets power, I mean, if he actually gets elected, I fear for this country's future. I fear for the future of human liberty, because I think he's the real deal. I think he's a brown shirt in his heart, and he will not make any distinction between the government and the people, and he will imagine himself as CEO of this nation, and run as much insofar as possible, run this country the way he runs his business enterprises, which is just an unimaginable horror. But I look at a guy like, I think about Jeb Bush, and maybe I'm wrong to think about this, but somehow I trust that. Cruz scares Rubio. I can't get it. I mean, he's just scary. He says crazy stuff all the time. Rand Paul's a bit of a technocrat. I like him personally in many ways, but I'm not so sure that he has a sort of stability that comes. I mean, to obtain maximum power does weird things to the human mind.
Bad thing. Very bad thing.
So who's most? So let me just ask you this: who among this crowd is most prepared to obtain maximum human power and not abuse it? That's the issue.
I'll bet I'm not the only libertarian or conservative who secretly was a little saddened that Biden didn't run, only because, horrible though he is, he's so normal. All the others seem just strange enough. They may do something horrible and bizarre, but Biden probably would be pretty predictable in establishment. And it's, of course, a very sad thing when you've sunk so low, you're disappointed Biden is out of the race.
I think Biden.
I'm kind of looking on that.
He would have just given in to political. I think he would have flip-flopped on everything that he was bad about in the past.
Biden is a disgusting drug warrior who gets almost no credit for that.
Right, but I feel like he's
just like handsome and is always like touching people, and it's just really great for some reason.
I think he's relatively ordinary, which is good, maybe.
He wants to suck up to the people.
Well, in addition to being relatively ordinary, which, Biden does kind of give you that blue-collar, sit-down,
too shiny to be
watch the game sort of atmosphere. But the other thing about Biden that he had in his favor was he was already a joke. I mean, he was already the Onion's running joke. And when you've got a president who's already a joke before they even get into office, then a lot of your work's already been done for you. It's not fighting against the tide the way it is now with Obama, where he's still even just a bit untouchable. The comedians, the people who would satirize any other politician in that position, they still really won't go after Obama. He's still untouchable. But I think Biden was just, wife beaters and drinking Pabst on the riding lawnmower on the White House lawn.
But he's too shiny and like politics version of a movie star for me to think of him that way. Maybe I'm getting it wrong. He has that gleaming grin and stuff, and he always seems a bit painted.
But who among the Republicans, has this sort of most normal, sort of sober sense that to obtain this kind of office, to get the mandate, and not do crazy things. I mean, it seems to me. I mean, Kasich is interesting. I'm interested in him in a way, but it seems to me among the whole crop, it's Jeb.
Yeah.
Who seems to have the.
I know, it makes me want to die.
So you're agreeing with me? I mean, I'm. Do you understand what I'm saying? I mean, I'm a little bit.
I think we're actually all in agreement on that.
Oh, that's awful.
I mean, Jeb's the one you can sit down and shoot the breeze with. I mean, that.
So the anarcho-capitalists are all agreed that we're rooting for the CIA family in this one, right? Is that how it's worked out?
That is where we stand, unfortunately.
Oh, that's really bad.
We are rooting for the CIA family.
No, we're not. No one here is rooting. I thought we were analyzing. And the question also to me is does the normal guy, I guess the normal guy does tend to get the nomination. Romney, that checks out. The really strident people.
Romney's a Stepford candidate. He's not the normal guy. He was this robot.
He's a normal programmed guy. I mean, I just think that
I wasn't entirely unsympathetic to Romney. I was probably wrong, but there was a part of me that just part of the capitalist me was sort of drawn to Romney. I'll just sort of say it, but.
Another pessimistic thought. I found myself during the Romney thing worrying, what if we look back years from now and say, that's as good as it ever got? That was the last capitalistic nominee either major party ever had.
Yeah.
Well, that reminds me of a really depressing Matt Welsh piece from like last year where he talks about basically, hey, libertarians, maybe Obama is sort of good in certain ways. And it was really...
That might be true. I mean, I tend to think, I look at, you know that I lived through the 90s. None of the rest of you did, but I did.
I did.
Okay. And I remember hating Clinton, like hating him, like every day, like, oh, Clinton's horrible. And then after he left office, I couldn't exactly remember why.
Well, Jeffrey, that's good, though, because that's our job. Like, it's our job is to hate them all, and not assume, and not even confuse the issue by thinking that they're bad people, because that's nearly irrelevant. Is that they're going to be given a hideous amount of power and a hideous lack of accountability, and we know what happens with that. So it is our job to hate them all.
I found myself.
What happens with Obama? I mean, this is why I'm worried. That we're going to look back and go, "Wow, he was awesome."
That was kind of Welsh's argument, and it was at least partially true, and it was very depressing.
We'll probably find ourselves looking back saying Obama was fairly centrist, as I think all presidents kind of have to be, because it's the one office that has to appeal, in theory, to a majority of the whole country instead of just one crazy partisan district. But I did find myself trying to remember just a few days ago why I hated Bill Clinton in the 90s, and there actually was a lot there to hate, although it's easy to forget because a lot of it didn't really have a big impact. But as I think David Bose from Cato pointed out, Clinton rattled off more spending proposals faster in his speeches than any prior president in history. Like, at sometimes faster than one per minute, he would rattle off new program ideas. And at precisely the juncture in history when everyone should have been pushing to say communism has collapsed, free markets should be the new dominant ideology. In retrospect, I think a lot of libertarians should have been saying that more stridently, but that's a separate issue. At precisely the time we should have been pushing to make hardcore free market principles the new ideology, remember Clinton and a lot of his cronies were saying it's time for a third way. Socialism's failed, but we don't want to go to full-fledged capitalism. We can forge a middle path and stuff like that. And if the 90s...
Mises wrote a thing about how that's not a thing, if I recall correctly.
And of course, Clinton picks all that up from Tony Blair, one of the most vile reptilian figures on the political...
Franklin confirmed for David Icke follower.
Metaphorically speaking.
Sure.
But that is true about Clinton, and I think the reason we all now, in retrospect, think of, hey, the Clinton years weren't so bad, was because of everything he wanted to do that didn't pass.
Thanks to the Gingrich Congress, basically.
Divided government during the Clinton years actually did what it was supposed to do. It created a kind of gridlock. And spending, of course, it never goes down, but it did slow under Clinton.
Okay.
More than it did under Reagan, more than it did under the two Bushes, and certainly more than it has under Obama. I mean, there's something to be said for the fact that, yes, he was distracted by Monica Lewinsky and the blue dress and all of that, and wound up in his second term being a foreign policy president like all the ones in the past have been in their second terms when they can't get anything through Congress. And yeah, that he did bad things then, because now we're lobbing bombs at aspirin factories in Iraq, and we're getting involved in air wars in Kosovo. But domestically, he couldn't get his agenda through, and that's why, in retrospect, he succeeded because he failed.
And in fairness to the Clintons, I suppose they do have a lot of corporatist instincts as opposed to socialist instincts, and sometimes that's a slight improvement. I think in some ways Hillary Clinton will be the culmination of the whole 100-year progressive plan, in that if you look back at the original progressives, they didn't think of themselves as full-fledged socialists. They really did want a partnership between big government and big business, and it took a while, but they got it. They won. Oh, well.
Oh, God, we can have a whole topic about how horrible the progressives were and so many things that pissed me off about the history books even I read as a homeschooler. Jeff, you were saying, go.
Well, well, several things. I'm curious about how Todd would distinguish the progressives from the interwar fascists. I mean, my impression is that there's definitely a distinction between the left progressives and the right fascists. And exactly how that plays itself out in history, I don't entirely understand. But there's something Franklin said that I thought was really interesting about the Clinton years, that the freedom, such as it was, of the 90s, came about not because anybody intended it, but because there was a gridlock that nobody's agenda could get passed because there was too much conflict, and they were canceling each other out. And as a result, we had, the result was a lower budget deficit, some increases in freedom. There was welfare reform and otherwise. And it made me, your comment triggered something in my mind. I think that sometimes libertarians forget the history of liberty itself, which is not that, it's not that like in Europe in the 16th, 17th century, anybody came to power who believed in liberty. The reason we got liberty, I'm drawing here mainly on Ralph Raico and some of my other teachers. The reason we had liberty was not because anybody intended it. It's because there was a competition between powers, and they checked each other.
Yeah.
And they were so subverted and their aspirations that the default was that people were allowed to go about their business.
It's a dangerous game, I feel like, even if it sometimes works out that way. I mean, yeah, God, I have to mull that over.
There have been some libertarian-leaning political scientists who've argued that's a safer bet, that actually gridlock tends to work out better than those who claim, they're ideologically allied to the market. It's actually a safer bet, betting on gridlock paralysis.
It's a fascinating point, because it means we're if we're seeking somebody at the top who agrees with us, that's actually the wrong point, the wrong point of view. We should be seeking, multifarious sort of powers competing with each other, and the gridlock that results is the most compatible with human liberty. I mean, that's a facet to me that's very interesting.
Well, I mean, my skin crawls that you get so many liberals over the past however many years it's been. I can't do math right now. Obama, they're whining about obstructionist Congress and who just wants to stop whatever Obama wants to do, and they have absolutely no memory for, gee, wouldn't an obstructionist Congress have been swell in 2001 so we didn't get the Patriot Act, or 2003 so we didn't get the war in Iraq? They literally can't remember that far back, because it's an all or nothing kind of game to people who actually have a dog in the fight that they truly do support. And those people are terrible, and I don't know what to do with them.
Well, this is one of the reasons I think I'm a little bit sympathetic to Jeb, because he doesn't have a big agenda, and I like that. He seems to have been groomed. I like to think of it as being like a Habsburg,
the chin and the hemophilia and such.
Right. That's a very Michael Oakeshott view, that he should by now have inherited some governing competence from his family members, right?
Who had it? How? When? I was almost hoping for just the honesty of a Clinton v. Bush match, because then you just be like, fuck it, this is what we have right here. Who cares? Oligarchy for everybody. Just nobody cares.
Well, can I ask what is the scenario under which Bush actually wins the nomination? I mean, as of today, everybody's writing him off as if he's dead.
Yeah.
I mean, is anybody optimistic about this? Can I say optimistic?
No, you can't.
Well, I think Iowa is out of reach for him right now. I'm not sure it was ever in reach. He would have to pull some sort of Hail Mary in either New Hampshire or South Carolina, and it's really hard to see right now.
I will say, I could imagine him winning by default still if each of the other candidates says something utterly psychotic, which is entirely possible.
It is entirely possible. And
hasn't Trump already done? I mean,
yeah, maybe
psychotic by how? What definition? I mean, my God.
I don't know anymore.
The problem is, I'm not sure that the median Republican voter isn't ready for psychotic.
I think Franklin's right about that. In fact, I think that one of the reasons Trump is softening. By the way, this is the bracelet I got at a Taylor Swift concert.
Oh my God! Yay!
Just pointing that
It's a long way from Gregorian chants, my good fellow. It's a long way.
But, you know, I mean, that's where, by the way, real human community takes place, is at large-scale pop concerts. It's not at large-scale political rallies.
I am definitely drinking to that, like in all sincerity.
Yeah. Now I've lost track of what I was going to say. I'm sorry.
Taylor Swift does that to a man.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was awesome. No, but you know, about Trump. One of the reasons I think he's softening the poll. Franklin, will you agree with this? Do you agree with this? So I've recently become convinced that there's like a third of GOP voters who are like actually actively dangerous people.
I think there's a third of GOP voters who are extremely militarist, who are really, it's like that song that Sean Hannity, proving my point, used to open his show with, you know, we'll put a boot in your ass, it's the American way.
So glad he's moved on to Florida Georgia line. Jesus Christ, he's bad at everything. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, but and I mean maybe it's being, you know, especially living down in here in the South and being around people who really want to put boots in people's asses. But that is at least a third of the GOP primary vote, and that, you know, that's why I've always thought that Rand Paul was just wasting his time.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, Rand. You know, can I just say this? One of the reasons that Rand Paul is not succeeding is because he's not blowing the dog whistles. You know. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's pro criminal justice reform. He's pro, you know, he's sympathetic to the plight of African Americans, you know, and dealing with the criminal justice system.
And he doesn't look like he wants to be there. And I mean that in the best possible way.
I agree with you, Lucy. I totally agree.
I love Scott Horton to death. And Scott Horton was like the first man on the God, I hate Rand Paul bandwagon. I love Scott. Scott is very smart. I never, you know, was the purity of Ron Paul compared with like the pure evil of Rand Paul, I think is a bit false, even if I prefer
I totally, you and I don't even need to discuss this.
But okay, what was my entire purpose here?
Well, but I mean, Ron. I mean, well, anyway, Rand doesn't send off the right signals.
Yeah.
By which I mean, what do I mean? I mean racism, anti-Semitism, misogyny, fascism.
And he so easily could have. No, I'm not saying he should, but
Trump
there's
did
that element within the Libertarian movement.
And there was a mass rush to support him, and now he's pulling back from that. And whoa, wouldn't you know it? His poll numbers are softening.
See, that's pessimism, Jeff. You're talking about these candidates, and you're sounding too human and you know, full of empathy for them as people. But at your core, that's a very pessimistic analysis.
It's a
frighteningly so.
But I mean, but as Franklin said, there's a lot of GOP voters that are very dangerous.
Right.
Don't support. I mean,
I pose a question to the class now. Justin Raimondo of antiwar.com he's a pain in the ass on Twitter. I'll say this, even though he's
I had to block
sort of in charge of me.
Okay, I understand.
Oh,
All right, well, not too personal because I can't. But just the fact, he writes, he'll troll for Trump in sort of a whatever way. But he wrote like, I don't support him. I'm not going to vote for him. I just am rooting for him. And I understand differentiating between that because I was sort of
just want to watch the world burn.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Justin and Trump both kind of do. I was rooting for Lincoln Chaffee because he was just a precious little anti-war, just little mouse. You just want to pet him. But Justin honestly seems to believe that Trump is not his dream candidate. He's not even Pat Buchanan, who I have many bad things to say about, but certainly writes some nice anti-war things on occasion, and his magazine turned out to be okay. But I mean, Justin honestly seems to think that Trump is somehow credible because, for example, he said the war in Iraq was stupid all the way back in 2004 before it was this hot new trend that the kids were jumping on. So I don't know, especially Jeff, I'm interested in if you think that's just fundamentally ridiculous, which I kind of do. I see the straws Justin is grasping at with the anti-war thing, but I mean, I don't know. I don't.
Lucy, I agree with you what you just said. I mean, straws that he's grasping at. Yeah. I mean, to cling to, his opposition to the Iraq War, to his doubts about a no-fly zone in Syria. That does not make him anti-war. I mean, this is a man who's longing for a global trade war. I mean,
right.
Everything he says is us versus them. What the hell? You cannot be anti-war when you're pitting American interests against the interests of every other country in the world. That does not make you anti-war. That makes you pro-war, and in some sense, the most dangerous of the. So I mean, all these, and by the way, my old friend Doug Bondo, whom I respect deeply. I mean, he went for this crap. I mean, he bit it, and wrote an article about Trump as the anti-war candidate. What the hell? I mean, what has gone wrong with libertarians? We don't care about we don't fucking care about trade. We don't care about migration anymore. This is not war. When you're calling for a blocking of anybody migrating to America because American business wants to hire them, that's not war. When you're agitating for massive protectionism against every other country in the world, that's not war. I mean, because you have to impose a no-fly zone that makes you anti-war. I mean, what have we come to as a people?
Wayne Allen Root, to his credit, recognized.
Oh God, Todd, no! Turn back now. Turn back now.
Bear with me. Recognized, to his credit, I suppose, Trump's warlike tendencies, because Wayne Allen Root sent a terrifying tweet saying, "Yes, Trump's finger on the nuclear button is what we need. Make the world fear and respect America again." Wayne Allen Root, vice presidential candidate, Libertarian Party, 2008.
It's hard to trust a man whose initials are war. I mean, let me just say that right now. It's just...
Yeah.
That's just bigotry.
It is. Max Boot is a neocon. I mean, come on. Like, these people have these names for a reason. They can't be trusted.
I'm sort of thinking this through here on the spot. I think maybe there's a reason that some libertarians can look at Trump and try to grasp at these straws, and I think it's because there is a different character to his belligerence. I mean, he's not a neoconservative. He's not let's go off on some damn fool idealistic crusade type of thing. But so he's probably
he wants to keep his damn foolery at home. I mean,
he's not going to get you involved in the sort of conflicts that you would get involved with in Iraq or maybe even Syria.
But why even trust that is my question, though. I mean, why would you?
I would say he is potentially even more dangerous because he might be the sort of guy who, because he wants to get into some sort of trade war with China, suddenly turns some sort of trivial conflict in Taiwan into a shooting war, which is potentially infinitely more troublesome and worrisome than a regional war in the Middle East, as bad as those are.
That's right.
Trump, by the way, is I think the only major candidate who really suggested that ISIS was essentially created because of the U.S. He said it almost looks like Obama's protecting them because he cares more about ousting Assad. And you don't hear that from any of the other candidates.
Well, Rand says this too, though.
Actually, another reason I suppose Justin Raimondo has probably got a little sympathy for Trump is that Raimondo, Buchanan, and Trump, of course, all have those old 90s Reform Party ties. So there's a bit of a populist streak there.
Right. No, I think, Todd, you're exactly right. I mean, what you have here in Raimondo and the whole crew that of people that are saying these things is they're blind to the danger on the right. Essentially, at some point in the 1990s, they all said no enemies to the right. The right is our salvation, and we have to hook up with them, and they're clinging to this old spirit. To me, I mean, I love Justin, right? But I mean, his whole temperament and his instincts seem to me about 10 or 15 or maybe 20 years out of date.
I hope he never sees this. No, it doesn't probably. I sympathize with Justin. I mean, I love Justin because, like, he likes when I fight with him, and he tolerates it. And I fought with him, like, in mighty Twitter battles, and then eventually I started writing for Anti-War. So, like, he's clearly not offended by a good fight. I appreciate that. And I also appreciate the fact that, I mean, he's still, I feel like he and other people are still reacting to even a decade ago when people were under-prioritizing war. And that's not to say that libertarians are over-prioritizing war, but there's this endless, I mean, we get stuck in the false dichotomies that people present us with, you know. Well, are you, like, if you have to choose the left or the right, which are you going to choose? You know, you want to choose like a soft fascist at home who's going to, you know, oppress Mexicans, but maybe won't get bogged down more in Iraq, or
I like this. I'm
your choice. I mean, and I don't want to even begin to choose one of those because I can't.
I like this attitude. This is nice. So when people accuse you of being left or right, we should memorize the sentence, I reject your binary categories.
Yeah, damn right we do. Damn right we do. So they will be foisted upon us soon enough.
No, I think that's good. We need to be alert to these dangers, the right, left. I gave a speech recently at the SFL in Atlanta or somewhere, or maybe it was New York, about the browns, the reds, and the greens. Those are the enemies of liberty.
Mm-hmm.
And they all represent their own unique dangers. They're all slightly different, but they all represent an attack on everything we believe.
And every depending on the president, there's also always, well, you're with us on the left because you hate W as well. So come on over. Obama's elected. Get out of here, you Koch brother loving so and so. You're not with us. Go to the right where you belong. And they use us as a football. And we should just stop being the football, I think, because we don't belong on either side. No matter what, history and, like, we've gotten bits and pieces, but we, at the end of the journey of liberty, we did not belong on either side. That is my firm belief.
Did you read Michael Tanner's article on Fox News about Rand Paul and Ron Paul?
Mm-mm.
Nobody read that? So let's do a podcast on that sometime.
Okay.
And read it. I thought it was one of the most challenging and insightful articles I've read in many years. It blew me away.
Duly noted.
Can you state the basic thesis in a sentence?
Yeah, it was that libertarianism has lost its way to the point that he cited a poll of libertarians within the Republican Party, all of the majority of whom are supporting Trump right now. Self-identified.
That's
odd. And he
Well,
so I wonder if I can find it real quickly. I mean, I would love for you to react. I mean, when I read it, I was like, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. It was so good. Or so I should say, so challenging. Well, I just Googled Michael Tanner Fox. I'm not finding it. So let me see.
Maybe if the libertarians are all going Trump, maybe we should all read up on that and discuss it another time.
Yeah, and that would be a dark day in the podcast.
I think there is something going on here, and this is why I've been writing so much about this topic, because I think we've not understood. We've not understood the exact dangers that they're presenting us. We're very alert to the dangers from the left, and yet, I reflect on the course of the 20th century. I mean, who was it that, Mises had written against the Reds, his whole life, and then what drove him out of Austria? It was the Browns.
Damn Nazis.
Yeah.
Well,
so we've got a problem on both sides. We've got a problem.
And we have the short memory too. I mean, we get mad at the one side, and we're like, maybe we'll team up reluctantly with the other side because they haven't been pissing us off as much lately. Like, we forget to. And it doesn't mean the savvy alliances aren't something we can do, but the actual, I am of the left or I am of the right, I think is a mistake. And it always is
a danger. And all of us understand this room tonight. We understand this. That libertarianism is something different. Or liberalism, I like to call it. Actually, I prefer that term.
That ship has sailed, old boy. I'm sorry to tell you.
I know, but I believe that I'm a liberal in the old sense. I mean, we favor the common good, we favor universal rights, and this is not any particular party.
Yeah. I've decided to abandon all ambiguous labels, so I'm just sticking with anarcho-capitalist for now on. But
you realize how like the left anarchists just twitch when you say that, or is that part of the fun? You're not an anarchist and capitalism. I heard you guys. You're not real.
No, I definitely have to separate myself from them. They're terrible. But I was going to say two pieces of Trump's populist appeal that I suppose it's easy to forget, or at least everybody seems to have forgotten, is that he was also Mr. Birther and more recently nearly Mr. Truther. So even though he seems like kind of a mainstream reality TV celebrity, he's probably got a fair number of the conspiracy sorts on his side for good or ill. And I will say, even
if they couldn't get Ron Paul elected, they better not get Trump elected, because that's going to piss me off. That
Trump may be where all of the people who should have been Rand Paul supporters have gone. That may be exactly what's happening here. And I will say, I've met a surprising number of smart business people who like Trump. I wasn't expecting that, but they basically said, nah, he speaks to me, he sounds like me, I understand people like him, and I didn't foresee that, but that's definitely happening too. So he's going to have smarter supporters than I thought he would have.
Well, I don't even know what to do with that. That's so bad. Actually, since I feel like we've been at this for about 50 minutes because we started late, which probably means I want to wrap up with as much as like this is one of those really good topics that I kind of hate to shut down because it's really good. And we're talking about politics, I'll remind you, not something fun like space aliens. We're talking about politics, and I almost want to continue. You guys are sick. That's terrible. But I want to do my not politics little mini end segment. And I feel like the appropriate thing to discuss for our final 10 minutes or so is Halloween, because it's almost a thing that's happening. And I wasn't sure if we should say what our greatest Halloween accomplishment was in our youths or anything like that, or if that doesn't apply to your life, just like the best, like the scary movie to watch on Halloween, or what you're gonna do on Halloween. I don't know. Let's just talk about Halloween. I know this is really abrupt.
I'm glad you're raising this point. I mean, for one thing, I've noticed since I was a kid. First of all, Halloween has deep roots in adult culture with All Saints and All Hallows Eve, which was taken over from the pagan world and then Christianized. And then at some time in the 20th century, it became a kids' holiday. When I was a kid, it was just a kids' holiday, and the adults didn't do it. Now it's become universalized, so the adults intensely care about Halloween, which I think is a very lovely thing. In my own office complex, everybody got off at noon today, and they're off all day tomorrow.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Halloween has become in the last 20 years or so, gradually, it's become a big deal for the whole of adult culture. Even a bigger deal than Easter or maybe even Christmas. I mean, it's Halloween is is an event in people's lives. And to me, it's an interesting illustration of the spontaneity of culture and how it takes its own course. People love Halloween. I mean, even I'm wearing a costume tomorrow.
Oh, tell me.
Oh, I can put it on for you if you want.
Quickly? Yeah.
Yeah.
We should have all dressed up for this. I guess. Oh, this is actually happening. Okay, that's happening.
One thing I suppose, actually this sounds like a Jeffrey Tucker thought, but since he's away, I'll say it.
Okay.
Halloween, one wonderful thing about Halloween is how flexible a holiday it is. I mean, you can basically be anything and look any way you want, and you're still participating in the holiday, right? So that's pretty exciting. It's a very, modular, adjustable holiday. That's fun.
That is a Jeff Tucker thought. You're not alone with that.
Unless your costume is politically incorrect, in which case you will wind up plastered all over Salon.com.
Whopper?
Joe, who's not spoken in 45 minutes, is captivated.
It's either a Whopper or a Big Mac. It's got to be a Whopper because there's tomato.
So that represents the
had to
capitalist
guess,
glory of industrial food production, I take it.
The perfect. all of capitalism in one food right there.
That is the most Jeff Tucker costume of our time. That's phenomenal. That's beautiful. It looks pretty delicious too. I'm impressed.
Yeah. This is what I'm wearing to work tomorrow.
All day. Is it comfortable? Is it?
No, it's barely noticeable at all. Really.
Are you gonna wear the bow tie with the hamburger tomorrow?
They go together.
They do go together surprisingly well.
That kind of makes him look like Mayor McCheese.
Yeah.
Is anyone else wearing something? You don't have to put it on right now, but does anyone else have costume plans in their lives, or are you sad and adult?
No one has ever accused me of being an adult.
Thank God.
No, although my costume choice is one of those things that only old people are going to get, because I'm going as Joe Flaherty's character from SCTV, Count Floyd.
Dude, my parents were just subjecting me to SCTV, and I didn't protest.
Really spooky, huh, kids?
Well,
I have a costume anecdote from childhood that may say something about me. I only vaguely remember this, but it's been repeated to me by my parents, that when I was 3 years old, first time I went trick-or-treating, I was dressed as the Disney character Goofy. But so acutely developed already was my sense of morality and truth-telling, which have stuck with me, I think, to this day, that as I trick-or-treated, I would assure families I'm not actually Goofy. I'm actually Todd Seavey.
My God, are you an atheist skeptic?
I didn't want to get candy under false pretenses, and I still don't.
Oh my God, that was inevitable.
Todd Seavey, honest panhandler.
Exactly.
I'm going to say that one of my finest costumes was from a couple years ago, and I do the opposite of the topical costume. I'm apparently I'm a hipster wearer horribly, because like no one ever gets my costume, but I was Winston Smith. I put on a goalie helmet from my friend, and I got a bunch of plush rats, and I kind of just put them in there, and then I tried to look really shitty. And so I was Winston Smith being subjected to the worst thing in the world in Room 101. It's very literary of me. This time, since I've been playing Fallout 3 a lot and really, really enjoyed Mad Max, I'm going to do like some kind of apocalyptic wanderer. Or I feel like a dead civil defense person, like a zombified, would be a little darker but also fun. So something nuclear, which has been the theme of the year somehow.
It sounds very scary.
It does. Anyone else? Joe, did you forget how to talk?
Well, my best costume ever was I got to be Rudolph, and it was a full costume, so nobody knew who I was, and the anonymity was kind of fun to just kind of go out, and it was just in college too, so it was I knew everyone, nobody knew me, and it was kind of fun, but not to throw a wet blanket over everyone's Halloween, celebrating, but as far as my generation, basically since 21 and before that, really, it's basically just an excuse to get drunk and make bad decisions with basically anonymous. It's a weird. I think it's my generation in particular
That's your friends, bro. That's
say this like it's a bad thing.
I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that is why Halloween appeals to.
Well, and the Mean Girls thing with the sexy girl costumes, which I have a very anti-third wave feminism style rant about.
With Mean Girls?
Well, the part in Mean Girls where it's explained how girls dress for Halloween. Poor Caddy has been
because I didn't understand this. I mean, like
it was true.
I mean, no girls dressed in sexy clothes. I mean, so that's Mean Girls.
No, it's real, Jeff. It's all too real.
But I never understood how this cultural change took place.
I don't know. It's just
frat culture and.
It's an excuse to be as scantily clad as possible in public if you're not some sort of stripper.
But it goes to like 40-year-olds, and there's a whole. I think there's like a 20-year kind of age group that all.
I know. I've seen costumes. I mean, sexy nurse, sexy Catholic schoolgirl, sexy hamburger.
There was a very funny.
Yes.
It's.
Actually, the website College Humor, which rarely has any humor,
I've noticed that.
They have this one great video from it, and it's a few years old now, called Girls Costume Warehouse. And it's a fake commercial for a warehouse that sells Halloween costumes for women, and they're all sexy costumes. It's sexy steel conglomerate.
It's why you can't do a joke sexy costume because it's all been done. And this drives me nuts. Sexy is fine, but the implication that as soon as a woman dresses up, it should be sexy. I'm sorry, Todd. It's getting a little feminist up in here. You have to just accept it. It just really bothers me that the assumption is, well. And there's also sort of a mocking element, like if your female firefighter costume is literally a red bra and a hat, to me it suggests isn't that cute? She's playing at firefighter and the dude's gonna dress up like a firefighter. It's annoying. I was Googling Mad Max female costumes, and I was like, oh look, you're dressed up like Mad Max, except you forgot your shirt and your pants, and you're wearing fishnet stockings, which is very bad for the apocalypse.
No, those are just the actual Mad Max costumes, I think.
Well, no, but yes, I mean there are some point partially taken, but
although
still.
The latest movie was quite feminist in its way.
It was, and it was
so
in
good.
A good way. Todd, in a good way. In
Yep.
a good way, it was feminist. I mean, that's not a criticism. It was an awesome movie.
It was awesome, Jeffrey. I loved it. I wish I'd seen it in theaters. I was dumb.
Long feminist story short, although this could be a topic for another time. I certainly have nothing against tomboys, strong women, or women who know how to use crossbows in the wasteland. It's the whiners that I'm complaining about most of the time. By the way, my signal went out for a minute earlier, and I hope it didn't cause any confusion.
No, I think we're good.
It caused massive confusion, but I think we're okay.
God, so many topics. I wish we could talk about all night long. I
liked your passion, Lucy. I mean, your passion about sexy Halloween costumes rivals your passion towards the Iraq War.
That is not good. I'll give Todd that one and say that that's actually really bad if that's true.
You could combine them into a great costume.
Sexy Iraq War protester.
Oh no.
There must be a sexy burqa costume. That shouldn't cause offense.
Yeah, that's been done.
Sexy Saddam Hussein.
Yeah, it's all been done. That the joke has been killed because it's all a joke. Sexy costumes all the way down. Sexy turtle costumes all the way down.
Sexy turtle. That's a great idea.
It was already done. I would say we should someday have a feminist debate podcast, but that might get a little angry.
I'm there.
I'm in.
Lucy, I can't.
Todd's not invited.
It's going to be you and 7 dudes.
Yes. Joe, this is libertarianism. It's usually me and 7 dudes, which is what she said. Anyway, that's on that euphemistic childishness. Maybe we should wrap this up, kids. Even though talking to you guys is really fun and making me feel much better about my entire life, which podcasts actually do, and I'd forgotten that.
Invite me back, Lucy. Thank you.
Thanks for coming, Jeffrey. All right, I guess everyone go to Todd Seavey website. Pitch yourselves real quick. Tell the people where to go.
ToddSeavey.com, and each weekday, SpliceToday.com will have my column. And in a few months, Libertarianism for Beginners.
Yay! I think that's the book my dad said should exist.
Oh, it does.
Yay, Todd! Franklin, where should the people go?
Well, I work for the Decatur Daily, DecaturDaily.com, and you can see my own personal stuff at FranklinHarris.com.
Okay. Joe, anything to add?
I don't really do anything. Go to the Stag blog or
Yeah, do that.
Travels with Charlie.
Without, I believe.
Charlie, whatever.
Yeah,
my dad's website.
Yeah, that thing.
Any of my relatives' websites will do.
They will do. We should go to you go to Liberty. What's it called? Sorry. What is it, Jeffrey? Plug all the things.
And fee.org are my two homes.
Sounds good. Yeah, and I am not very prolific this entire year, which is kind of a bummer. But in theory, I'm working on a Federalist and a Vice thing or two. And antiwar.com is always there, bless its heart. And go to the Stag blog, as Joe said. All right, I think we're done, kids. It was lovely. Thank you so much for joining me. We'll see you guys again sometime.
Okay. Taylor Swift powered. All right. Good night, y'all.
All right.